Welcome to the Mindspo podcast. My name is Rochelle Fox. I am your host. And today is a very, very special episode. When I think of big milestones and moments in my life, I really want to share them with you, my incredible community, the people that have made so much of what I'm about to share possible. And today, I'm going to be opening the package of my first ever book for the first time. I have been working on this project. Well, honestly, it feels like a lifetime in terms of like how long these things take to come together. It's the longest project I've ever worked on. And it's right here, right now. So I wanted to start today's podcast by sharing this moment with you, getting this moment on camera. But then I also want to make this podcast a lesson and actionable for you. So I have my partner here, my partner in crime, my partner in life, and my partner in business, Chris Soul. And if some of you, if you're new to the podcast, Soul is the co-founder of Mindspo with me. We do all of Mindspo together. He is really what makes so much of Mindspo possible. And he had a big role in this book coming to life. He was my rock during the process, and obviously just someone that was with me for the whole entire journey. And he played an integral role in something to do with this book, which we're going to talk about in this episode. So I want to share with you the cover, and then I want to share with you the story of how I managed to get this cover and what it means to me and what you can learn from creating your dreams and doing things in a way that are authentic to you.
Sounds good. All right.
That was a lot.
That was a lot.
I feel a little nervous because I'm going to be showing you the journey that I went on visually to be able to get the cover that I have now for my book today. And I'm going to show you the design process of the many covers that I rejected until we got this cover. And I think it'll be a really beautiful one to watch. So I need to just open this, don't I?
Yeah, I think you do.
Okay.
It's been a long time coming.
Can we?
Cool ASMR track.
All right, for everyone listening, I have a package here from DHL and I'm just gonna...
I think it's time. This has been a lifelong dream with Rochelle. So this is a very, very special moment. Whoa, here we go.
Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh.
Chunky.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, Chris. I'm shaking so much. Oh. Oh my gosh, and the little penguin logo. Oh, it smells good.
Hey, look at that.
Here we are.
Okay.
We have magnetic. Oh my gosh. Wow. I can't describe to you how strange it feels to work on something so long and then to see it in real life and to see something that because it's just so many words. There's something really weird about holding it on camera. I feel like I should be hiding it from everyone because I'm so used to hiding it.
Oh, the paper feels really nice.
This paper's gorgeous. How amazing is the typesetting?
Yeah, it's nice and thick.
It's thick. It's like chunky.
Yeah.
Wow. The words take up so much more of the page than what I thought. It's a really good font size.
Yeah, they did a really good job with the
really
font size.
good font size.
Yeah.
It's
so easy to read.
It feels like a relaxing read. So I'm dyslexic. And one thing about being dyslexic is sometimes when I read a book, I get really visual, because I have visual dyslexia. When everything's crammed on a page, I can get very overwhelmed with it. But wow, this just feels so spacious.
Having a moment.
Yeah, I'm definitely having a moment.
This is great. It's going to look so good in bookstores.
I feel so much more relaxed now I've seen it in person.
Yeah, it's real. Here it is.
Oh, and I don't have to edit it. It's so nice to see it and not have to edit it.
Literally, it's done.
I think there's this crazy feeling with a book. Every single time I have looked at this book and I've looked at the pages, there's been this feeling of editing and refining and changing. So it's never felt fully relaxing. It's definitely felt like a never-ending kind of process. It's done.
Done.
So now that you've seen the cover of Magnetic and the finished product, we want to take you on a little bit of a journey of what it took to get here and specifically some of the lessons and takeaways that I learned in this process, because there was a lot that I learned working with a really big company, learning how to maybe do things a little bit more professionally, how to use your voice a little bit better, how to get what you want in a way that doesn't rub people up the wrong way. There were a lot of lessons here. But before we go into that, there needs to be a little caveat of the history of Sol and I.
Sure.
So Sol and I have been together for how long, babe?
14 years.
And our relationship started with...
A night out at a nightclub.
We met each other at a nightclub, and...
If I really think about it, the beginning of our story was very deeply related to graphic design, because the reason I was at that night was because I designed the poster for it. And that night, I gave you my business card, basically.
No, I had your business card, and I was told that you were a great designer, and I was in the market for some graphic design. I had a blog at the time called A Fox That Meows.
Yep.
Gosh, 2011, Rosh. And I wanted a new logo for it. I wanted to have it look more professional, if we can look professional with a name, A Fox That Meows. And I decided to email you and ask you to do some designs for me.
That's right.
And I thought we were just going to have some back and forth on email, but...
Well, I was a self-employed graphic designer who hated meetings. I love my freedom and no schedule. So I would tell all the clients, just email me and wait for my reply. When I got your message, I was like, oh, we're definitely going to have to have a very in-depth meeting. And then we turned the meeting into going to the beach.
Yeah, and the meeting kind of turned into a date.
The rest is history.
That's a whole other story.
Yeah.
But I'm going to show a whole bunch of designs that Sol has made for me, the Rochelle Fox brand, over the year, because you have been the catalyst for this whole entire process. So if you're listening to this episode on YouTube, you'll see the designs now. This is kind of like the history of my evolution as a brand. I've gone from being a blogger, like a fashion blogger, a model, a DJ, a radio presenter, to maybe just like someone like, what would you call me?
Travel influencer.
Travel influencer, to a thought leader. Like the Rochelle Fox brand's gone on a massive journey. And something that I have always thought that you're always going to be the person who designs my personal brand.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't ever imagine you not being that. And that's important to share with you, because when I got the contract for my book from my publishers, Penguin, there was a clause in this contract that made me feel really uncomfortable. And the clause was that they had the end rights on deciding
final say
on the cover, and that was done by them. And I remember reading this one clause, and that was the only thing that I just didn't really agree with. But I was like, you know what? They're not going to make a cover that I don't like. I'm not going to have an issue with that. They're a giant publishing house, and surely they're going to take a lot of my suggestions. And you know what? In the back of my head, if I'm really honest with you, I was like, Sol's going to design the cover anyway, and they're going to love it. But I never said that. I signed this contract, and then in very early stages, I got this email from my editor, and I just remember the title being Covers. I thought this email was going to be about mood boards and
beginning the conversation,
because
covers.
I'm someone that thought I was going to have so much input. I had more to say at this point in the journey of what I wanted the cover to be and the energy of it than I had the book. And this is an interesting point. I think everyone works differently when it comes to creative projects. You and I are the kind of people that need to have the logo for the business and the name of the business or the idea before we do anything. If we create a new product, we have the cover of the new product, the design of the new product, and the name.
It's the frame, the container helps define the contents.
Whereas so many other people, that's the last thing they think about. And I think it's just like how you work. That for me is, I don't feel like I'm actually doing it until I have the visual.
For sure.
So I was still figuring out exactly what the structure is going to be, where everything's going to happen. Like I was in this very conceptualizing process, but I was so clear on the feeling I had of the cover. So I'm going to put up the pictures that were in that email. I thought it was going to be a brainstorming email, but instead it was an email all about covers and all of these designs.
Yeah.
And I freaked out because here's the thing. These covers are really, really cool, but they represented my personal brand and what my Instagram looked like at the time. And
which we were just in the process of updating and changing because it'd been like that for maybe 2-3 years already. And the color gradient kind of vibe, it feels like it kind of peaked already. And I think the vision we always had because we talked about this, we talked about what's going to be the style of it. I mean, you've wanted to write a book for so long, and there were many different ideas that were slowly evolving until the final piece came together. And we always discussed that the book needs to be timeless. It needs to not be super trend based. It needs to be the kind of book that if someone picks it up in 2048, they're like, this book looks really cool. And that is describing what we had in our mind. It's very subjective. It's more like a feeling. We did know that it should be a coffee table book, a book that the reader wants to leave out in their house because it says something about them. The kind of book you want to be seen carrying, so that on the outside is as great as the inside. And I've worked in agencies, I've worked in some corporates, in an in-house design team. And I always thought that while I'm sure Penguin would put out many amazing book covers,
and they have got some epic ones.
Of course, there is always a high chance that the level of intention that an in-house designer who's not connected to you, doesn't know you, he doesn't talk to you about this book, he's just given a brief, he's given 30 briefs a month. So the level of intentionality that I always expected that would go into this, where there might be 50 different versions of this cover before the final piece is chosen, I didn't have much faith that an in-house designer was going to go through that level of scrutiny and trying hundreds of fonts until you settle on one. Because you can't expect every single author to get that level of treatment. So when we got the first designs, it wasn't quite there. It was like a 7 out of 10, which we were aiming for our 10.
Yeah. So the designs that we got weren't what we were hoping for. So we decided to start sending some designs back. And it was, I think, a little bit of an unusual thing in publishing, because generally they're the ones that do all of this. Like I said, I've signed a contract, but we were like, hey, here are our ideas.
Yeah, I mean, you can't build a gigantic publishing company where the author's boyfriend designs the cover every time.
No.
That is not a very good standard operating procedure. So it was always going to be an exception to the rule. I started designing some more covers. The first ones that came through were this silhouette with some vibrations coming off it. We really wanted to put foil on the cover so that it would be... The cover needed to look photographable, something that stands out, that if someone takes a photo of it, it's like, oh my God, this book just arrived. Other people would be inspired to buy it as well. So foil was a great idea to add. But those first designs, we thought we nailed it.
We were so egotistical,
we were like,
guys.
We got it.
We were like, you know what, Penguins, they're going to love this. They're going to write back and be like, wow, this is incredible. This is the best book cover we've ever seen. No. They were, this is not the direction. We're probably stepping on toes a little bit because it's very unusual.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that we never thought that they said, and they said back to us, which now I look back and I'm like, wow, they were so right, is they told us that it looked like a fiction book.
Yeah.
And we both looked at each other, we're like, fiction?
Yeah.
And I think at the time we were really defensive. Like, it doesn't look like a fiction book. But now when I look back at
It's so funny how you can buy into your own stories in the moment. You have to really watch out for your ego to just bite itself into whatever.
Here's Sol and I never designed a book cover before. First time author being like, we'll show them. We've got the best idea. And they're like, we publish books for a living and this looks like a fiction book. Even my literary agent, she's like, yes, I agree with them. It looks fiction.
Yeah.
So we took a little bit of a hit there and we're like, okay, we need to kind of reel it back. So now I'm going to show you on screen for everyone on YouTube all of the other covers that came back. We went on an absolute journey where basically Penguin would send us covers, we would reject them, Sol would send other covers, they would reject those, and we kept having this back and forth. And in the process of having this back and forth, we learned a few things. Firstly, we all kind of decided that it was going to be a circle. And we were like, we're going to have a circle on this book cover. And we'd never really thought of doing a circle before, but I'll tell you now, go into a bookstore and look around, you'll see circles everywhere.
Yep.
And then we sent back some circles with sparkles on them. We thought we'd nailed these ones. They kind of look like our app. We had the sparkle representing a thought in the middle of the circle. They came back to us. They're like, this looks like holiday Christmas collection. Again, our egos were bruised. We were like, this is amazing. Oh, maybe they're right. Maybe it does look like a holiday book.
There's a lot of back and forths. And we did get to a point where we could sense that it was now like high time. We're already in the end zone. We're already over the time limit.
And this is the point that I want to talk about some of the lessons. So as a woman in business, and I think just that is navigating the world, I think sometimes there is a tendency for women like myself to want to not rock the boat. And I feel like I've learned a lot in my life about using my voice and speaking my truth. And I'm very confident in that way. But we started to recognize, well, you started to really recognize something about me on this process, which was...
You were going to settle.
I was going to settle. We were going back and forth.
You were going to fold faster than Superman on laundry day.
I was saying to Sol, I was like, do they hate me? Are they going to get annoyed at me? Do you think my editor is pissed off at me? And I was creating this story in my head, and look, this is in Magnetic, it teaches you how to let go of your story. And I was noticing my own bullshit, noticing my own ego, noticing my own story, noticing my own programming of shrinking to have other people's approval. And Sol started to kind of really point this out to me, and it started to be a bit of a personal development lesson in, okay, I need to get what I want, but I need to do it in a way that doesn't rub people up the wrong way. And I need to learn and listen in the process because I don't know everything. And I think I kind of went into this with, I don't want to say a diva attitude, but I was very clear that I have a vision, but I wasn't being a very good communicator. And I think that this is a massive lesson in, if you have a vision and you have something that you want, you need to think about the other person.
Yeah, you have to learn how to negotiate and how to become assertive. And especially with people in a corporate environment who have hierarchies and structures and they have many projects going on. There were some lessons for me as well in this. I knew early on that you would have to fight for this, but you have to fight for it in a way where you see the world through their eyes and you fight for it without aggression, with charisma and humor and persistence until they see that, wow, we're on the same team here. And
I was definitely doing it. They're against me.
You were getting you were taking it personally.
Yes.
You were getting disheartened and like, oh, not again. And I mean, me too. I have that in me because I'm a bit of a design prima donna as well. If I see Comic Sans on another Thai restaurant, I'm like, guys, is this a cartoon strip or a restaurant?
Yeah, and I think one of the lessons for me was Chris kind of kept reminding me of what, as a company, they are doing. They're like, Rochelle, they are pumping out, the designer that's designing these, they are doing so many book covers, you need to be more specific. Yes. And I think this is something that if you're a creative, if you're someone that is a coach or running your own business, something to learn about creatives is that you need to give them directions, and being vague and fluffy and just saying no, but saying no without actually giving them a direction of what you desire is just leaving them in the ether of, okay, so I have no parameters and you're rejecting everything.
If you say, I want a really cool logo, then the chances of you getting a logo you'll like is about 1%. If you give them some limitations and freedoms and explain what to you is a cool logo, give them as much information as possible without being a control freak, then you can immediately, as a designer, move into a direction knowing that the chance of you actually triangulating success is going to increase massively. But yeah, and especially a giant publishing company like Penguin, it's a big business. They've been around for hundreds of years.
Yeah, they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And so I want to take you on screen now to the last design, and I'll describe it for anyone listening. We had this last design sent to us, and it was these pink, blue, and silver covers with white background. And it reminded me, I remember I got a visceral reaction of like, oh no. It reminded me of like 2016 Instagram. However, it was starting to move in the right direction because we had decided that we weren't going to go with this kind of pink orange color, which was all of the original designs with these very bright pink orange colors. And I remember when I said no to this design, my editor wrote back to me and she's like, Rochelle, you need to tell me what you want because we can't keep using our resources to just keep giving you ideas without any sort of guidance. So I sat down and I went into my creative space. I remember I meditated, I played some of my favorite music, I was in our magnetic writing cabin, and I was just there by myself. And I came up with this mood board that I'm going to put on the screen now. And I was like, you know what? One of the things that I've always desired for this book is that I wanted it to be personal development that you have on show. And this is something that we've spoken about. Like, a lot of people back in the day would have personal development books that they would be scared to be seen holding.
Yep.
Think about those books that have
shame in wanting to improve yourself.
Yeah, and I think personal development has gone through such a journey of these days, it's cool.
It's a virtue.
It's cool to look after yourself. It's cool to be someone that wants to improve. But back in the day, maybe kind of in the 90s, when I remember people reading personal development, you wouldn't necessarily read a personal development book on a train because they had these very kind of negatively geared titles. It was, you're stuck, here's the answer sort of thing. Whereas I wanted Magnetic to feel like something that if you walked into someone's house that was a meditator and a reader of Magnetic and you saw Magnetic on the table, that book is going to be a conversation piece. And even if the person who saw that isn't into meditation or personal growth or manifesting or anything, they might just read it and get into it because of how cool the cover looked. So I was like, that's what I'm trying to achieve. I want it to be calm, cool, magnetic, vibrant, and I didn't want a lot of color. So I came up with this mood board.
Yep.
And the mood board had some very key things in it. I want to mention 3 things. One, we had this brand new cover of Eckhart Tolle, A Power of Now. You've read that book, haven't you?
Of course.
It
It was my intro into mindfulness.
It's an amazing book.
It was the first book that made my mind stop for a moment, making me realize I'm not my mind.
And Penguin had suggested that to me as inspiration. They were like, that blue is really beautiful. I was like, yeah, and I love blue.
Favorite color.
And then I put on this page a picture of Vex King, Good Vibes, Good Life. Vex King, I think, has some of the best covers out there. I love his covers. You can instantly tell when it's a Vex King cover. All of his books have that same energy.
Very minimal, very abundant.
Yeah, beautiful.
Clean.
And then lastly, I had Rick Rubin, The Creative Act. And this book's really special. If you haven't read it, I really recommend it. It has a big, beautiful circle on it. It's a gray book. And this was the book that my editor actually gave me after having a meeting before we signed anything. And she just gifted it to me. We didn't have any contracts. We weren't even sure if it was going to work out. But she was like, you should read this book. And I wish you on your journey, whether we work together or not.
It's an amazing book.
And it's a beautiful book. So I showed it to Sol and I was like, Chris, this is what I'm thinking.
It's a perfect starting point.
And then you worked some magic.
I made a bunch of different options and it really came together. It started to feel like a poster that you would see in a really cool fashion boutique or something. That it wasn't trend-based, but it's hard to describe. But in the end, we settled on a really great looking cover. And I remember we made, I think, a few different versions with just slight tweaks.
Yeah.
So the question was which one? Because they're just like very small changes. But I also realized because of where we were on the journey, being in like overtime already, this was going to have to be like a home run now. We have to get this across the line. So this was where a couple of the lessons around how to be assertive and how to get your way whilst respecting the other person's viewpoint came across. What we did was we took a couple of the other designs, the past ones that we were presented with. I rendered up a screen where we put 3 different covers with the blue circle in the middle with our cover. And it was just a natural choice, basically. From those 3, you were like, okay, the middle one is definitely it. But then the key piece was we were basically just sending back designs constantly, but we weren't going to the extra length of selling the design, of describing the meaning of the design. So in the final email that we sent before it came across the line, we really sat down and we described the symbology of every part of the cover. Because I figured, we described the blue circle representing the depth and stillness of the ocean, which is the meditation part of the book. And the gold foil with the strong lettering is signifying abundance and attracting the luxury and everything. And so we painted this entire vision with words as well as then the visuals. And I realized we weren't going to have somebody on the other side now trying to write a better poem about one of the other, because come on, no one's got time for this.
Yeah, and I think we'd wasted so much of their time that they were like, okay, guys.
All right.
Here's the thing that we learned that I think is a very interesting point from that. Sol and I have watched a lot of design shows and a lot of art shows. Yes. One big takeaway that I've learned about art and design is that it's more about story than anything else. Yeah. And when someone buys into something or gets invested into something, something or feels a certain way about something, it's the story that they generally are connected with, because humans are storytellers.
Yeah.
It's about what meaning does this thing have? Because I could have a vase and I could say to you, this is a vase that I bought, or I could say, this is my great grandma's vase that she got the clay for it in Italy, and then she brought it back.
It was lost in the Second World War and found by a farmer in the 60s. You're like, oh, I'm spellbound now. I want this vase.
And the flowers on it are painted, and that makes you have a connection with something. So we use that knowing to really kind of infuse story into it. And then also for us to feel a certain kind of way about, like, what does this mean for other people?
Yeah.
Because for me, out of everything, when it comes down to it, Magnetic, the book, isn't about me. It's about a feeling. It's about people having a feeling and going through a process of uncovering that feeling within themselves.
Feeling centered, feeling like they're attracting.
And you know what the main one is? Presence.
Yeah.
The power of presence. And I think in writing the whole entire book, if there's one thing that I want people to feel at the end, is a sense of presence in their life, a sense of centeredness and calmness and
personal power,
tranquility.
Yep.
I think we achieve that.
Yeah. And you know what's funny as well? It's not even like we made up a story at the end.
Yeah.
We just decided to write out what all the pieces actually did represent. The blue, the gold, the minimalism, the centeredness, these were all symbolic. It's just we never went to the extra step of actually verbalizing it in an email, and that was the thing that finally sealed the deal.
Yeah, and I think that was a lesson. We made a lot of mistakes on this journey because I didn't communicate well. I wasn't clear about what it is that I desired. I wasn't clear about the feeling. I needed to communicate better and not be afraid of just really saying it how I saw things.
Yeah.
And I think that this, for me, has been such a big lesson in you have to be really careful to get what you want in life, but do it in a way that doesn't rub people up the wrong way, and do it in a way that's respectful, but also listen in the process of, like, what is that other person telling you that you're not listening to? Because we went into this process with way too big egos, thinking we were amazing book designers, which we're not. We kind of landed on a home run in the end, but our first designs were not it. And they had very, very valid, clear reasons why these weren't working. And I've learned so much about, there is so much knowledge with experience. When someone has so much experience of something, there's reasons why things don't work.
And also not to just settle on the first version, because we would have, if they had been pushovers and just gone, oh yeah, all right, we'll go with that first cover. This cover that your book now has is so much better, so much more representative of what we wanted.
Hey?
Yeah, so it's wild how the mind can play those games with yourself, but yeah.
Anyway, everyone's probably like, wow, you guys talked a lot about book covers, but this was something that we, how many months? I need to look at how many months it took.
Where are we starting?
It started in Bali. I think the book cover, I think this was over 5 months of back and forth.
It was a long time.
5 or 6 months we did. So it was a big journey for us, and apologies in advance to Paymo for being an absolute pain in the ass on the book cover journey. That is the story of Magnetic. That is the story of how it came to be. Actually, Chris, if you open the book.
Yes.
If you go to page 337 and read the second last paragraph.
Oh, to my lover and best friend, Sol, thank you for being a provider of safety, support, passion, patience, and love for me. Not only so that I had the space needed to write this book, but also for me to grow as my own person over the last 13 plus years. You chose to stick it out with me when I was in the depths of my darkness, and I continue to choose you in the light we have co-created.
Love you very much.
I love you too.
Thank you for putting up with my bullshit during this process.
I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. So I hope that shares a little bit of an insight into the journey of creating Magnetic. I really wanted to share the behind the scenes of that, because I think that a lot of the times you just see a book cover and you don't realize the journey someone might have gone on to get it to where it is. And this book cover has a lot of intention put into it, and this book has a lot of intention put into it. And I'm so excited that you can now pre-order Magnetic. I have the link to pre-order down below in the description box. If you're listening to this after January 16th, then it is out and available now. But I do want to say, if you pre-order, you get some really epic pre-order bonuses. So I'm going to have all of that linked down below in the description box. So grateful for this journey, all the things that I've learned along the way, and how it's just kind of helped me become like a better person in so many aspects, and learn how to kill my ego a little bit, and learn to listen to people more, and learn to develop myself more, and learn how to stand up for myself more. Writing a book is the ultimate personal development.
100%.
Probably second to having kids is the ultimate personal development, let's be real. But
Yes.
This was a form of ultimate personal development. It's the ultimate personal development that I've done so far. But I'm sending you guys so much love. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for joining me for this episode. You can discover more from Mindspo on Instagram and TikTok by following @Mindspo and myself @Rochelle_Fox. If this episode inspired you, then please pass it on and share the love. And if you're new to our world and you want to elevate your mind and step into your best self, then be sure to download our app, Manifesty, from the App Store and take advantage of the free trial. With Manifesty, you can create your own vision board